You done now?
Broadcasting live from Houston, Texas, and around the world. TV host, best-selling author, and radio personality Brad Gilmore brings you a collection of conversations with stars from movies.
Mark Wahlberg.
Hey, how are you?
The legendary Mr. Christopher Lloyd. Christopher, how are we doing?
I'm doing good. Great introduction.
Television.
Jimmy Fallon joins us this morning. Jimmy, how you doing, my friend?
Good morning. Thank you so much, Brad, for having me. I appreciate this, bud.
Kelly Ripa.
Brad, thank you for having me.
Comedy.
Jay Leno joins us. Jay, how you doing?
Hey, Brad, what's going on?
Gabriel Fluffy Iglesias.
Good morning.
Music.
Lola Monroe.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Grammy Award winner Maya joins us.
How are you?
And more. This is The Collection. Now your host, The Boat, Brad Gilmore.
And he joins us this morning. We're talking about the National Dog Show on Thanksgiving Day on NBC. He is the incomparable Mr. John O'Hurley. John, thanks so much for joining us.
Well, thank you very much. I've always thought of myself as comparable rather than incomparable. That's all right. I appreciate that.
No one compares to you. You've had such a legendary career. And, I mean, from your time in Seinfeld, Family Feud, books that you've written, obviously you own part of the J. Peterman catalog, but let's talk about the National Dog Show because, correct me if I'm wrong, this is one of the highest rated television events year over year. Is that correct?
It's absolutely correct. We'll have a global audience of about 30 million people, and it's become a remarkable Thanksgiving tradition for 21 years now. And I can't believe I've kept the show alive for 21 years. Usually I kill them after the first season.
30 million people in today's time, you can't get 30 million people to do, like worldwide, to do anything collectively anymore. I mean, everything's so fragmentized. There's so many options on television to YouTube, but it's insane.
It's a very good point. That's a very good point. It's, the pie has gotten sliced so thin, and every year it gets thinner and thinner and thinner, and ratings go down and down and down, but ours just keep going up and up and up. And I think it underscores a wonderful piece of programming on the most wonderful family day of the year, and it gives something that everybody can watch on television, whether you're 4 or you're 94. There's something there for you, and because, America has a love affair with their dogs, and every year there are more and more dogs registered, and more rescues are brought into homes. And so, again, it underscores just our love affair with our dogs and what they bring to us.
How did you get involved with the National Dog Show initially? Like, what was the impetus for coming together and doing this?
It's a very funny story. John Miller, who was the head of NBC Sports, took home the classic film Best in Show, which was the parody of the Westminster Dog Show. And he watched it over the weekend back in 2002. He watched it twice, and he laughed as hard as he could at both times, and came into the morning meeting at NBC on Monday there, and he said, I know what we're going to do with that 2-hour slice between the parade and football. He says, we're going to do a dog show. And they about laughed him out of the office. But by the end of the day, he had cornered the Kennel Club of Philadelphia for one of their shows and put Peterman in as a presenting sponsor. And on Tuesday morning, he called me in Los Angeles. I picked up the phone, and I said, hello. And he said, woof, woof. And that was it. That's
woof.
How it started.
And it's been going ever since. Now, you are obviously a dog lover. You had a book come out called The Perfect Dog a few years ago.
I have 3 books out, yeah.
3 books, yeah. So, I mean, talk to me about your kind of, I know obviously dogs are man's best friend and things of that nature. I've always been a pet owner. I've always been able to pull this off. I've always been able to have a dog and a cat at the same time. I don't know how I've done it, but I've always been able to pull that off. But really,
you mean under one rooftop you have red states and blue states?
Yes. I have brought our divided country together. It's like the black and white cookie from Seinfeld, right? Where we've brought them together. But to me, like for you seem to have such a love and admiration for these beautiful, majestic animals that are dogs. Where does that come from?
Well, I think I've always had a dog. So, as I wrote in my first book, I'm a better person with a dog in my lap. And that's the truth. I think they round out our brittle edges there. And, I think they do so much, and yet they know not what they do. Your were the rock star in their lives. So no matter how stressful your day was, they take a lot of the load off when you walk in the door.
The National Dog Show is on NBC Thanksgiving Day. John O'Hurley, the host of the show. I mean, to go to this, though, I love stories in Hollywood about how roles almost never were. For example, Christopher Lloyd, who played Doc Brown in the Back to the Future films, when he was sent the script for Back to the Future, he threw it in the garbage immediately because he said, I just want to be a theater actor. I don't want to do film anymore. His wife said, hey, maybe you should just give it a chance. Leave no stone unturned. And then he became the iconic Doc Brown. For you, if I'm correct, you initially turned down the role of J. Peterman on the Seinfeld show. Is that right?
Well, I had a series, a sitcom on ABC that was canceled on a Wednesday or Tuesday morning. And they said, don't bother coming to work. We pulled the plug. That's kind of the way they do it. And I went out to dinner that night with my manager trying to take the cancellation as personally as I possibly could, crying in my beer. And Larry David's office called and said, we have this guest star role. We heard John's show got canceled. Would he be interested? It's a fun role. It's all his if he wants it. And I said to my manager, I said, tell him no. I'm still licking my wounds over, canceled today. And so that was the way it was left. The following morning, my manager called me and said, I never called them and they're expecting you. So 10:30, you have a table reading. So I went over there, and I always allow myself 24 hours to mourn anything. So that was just enough to blow it out of my system. And I was over at Seinfeld, and the rest is history. If I had said no and he had called them, I would have disappeared into a cultural vacuum.
Well, one of the things I think made your portrayal of the J. Peterman character so iconic was the line deliveries. I love how actors make choices to deliver the dialogue. It's one thing for someone like a Larry David or Jerry Seinfeld to come up with the dialogue, but delivering that's where the key comes through. And I called you incomparable earlier, but this might be the first time that anyone's ever compared you to a professional wrestler, because there was a pro wrestler back in the day named Jake Roberts, and Jake the Snake. And during that era, all the wrestlers were yelling at the top of their lungs, but he spoke very quietly and drew people in, right? He spoke softly so people would listen. And your delivery reminds me so much of that. You draw people into the joke instead of being huge and over-performative. You deliver it so expertly. Where did that line delivery idea come from?
Well, when they first gave me when I went over that day to they hadn't finished the script. I mean, they were the most disorganized show on television. They had so they about half the script written, but they handed me the Peterman catalog, which was what we parodied on the show. And for those of you, if you go to jpeterman.com, you'll see the actual catalog online that we parodied. And it's like a Hemingway novel with about an Oxford button-down with a price, size, and availability attached. So it always has this wonderful, story attached to it. And but it's always, the elegance of that time when, everything was singular. And so I took a little bit, I read through the catalog and I said, well, this sounds a little bit like a 40s radio drama combined with a little bit of a bad Charles Perrault. And so I think that's kind of where the genesis of the character was.
During your time on Seinfeld, obviously it was the biggest show in the world. I had a friend who was a day player in Seinfeld. He was in the Soup Nazi episode, and he just talks about how even he had no lines or dialogue. The camera just came on his face one day, and he said next day, everybody recognized him. It was that powerful of a show. Did you feel the power of the show when you were on it?
I probably was more anxious about doing that taping of that first show than I have ever been in my life. Yeah, I did. Because, it was getting 40 million people. And for the life of me, I couldn't understand why. Because what I learned about that show was it's a different style of comedy. It wasn't where you were setting up for the punchlines. It was, it basically was a different style. You had to play every scene as though it was a drama from, Cat on a Hot Tin Roof. And then if you played the scene dramatically, the scene was funny because you were getting passionate about something that was absolutely just niche humor.
Yeah, such an iconic role. We're talking to John O'Hurley, the National Dog Show, goes down on Thanksgiving Day. Be a part of the 30 million people worldwide who are watching the dog show on NBC Thanksgiving. Last thing for you, John, because back in May, my wife and I took a trip to go to New York to see Chicago on Broadway. It was the where Pamela Anderson was portraying Roxy Hart. We had such a great time. The movie, directed by Rob Marshall, was one of my favorites. I love seeing it in person. Now, you've played the iconic Billy Flynn for over 2,000 performances in Chicago. Is that correct?
I have, and it's one of my favorite things. It's one of the favorite things I do in my career.
I think Billy Flynn's one of the great characters ever. I mean, on stage or screen.
I think it's one of the great, just absolutely epically written characters. He makes the greatest entrance and the greatest exit in Broadway history for a male actor.
Out of all the songs and the musical numbers that Billy Flynn has, I mean, there's, We Both Reach for the Gun, there's the All I Care About Is Love, Razzle Dazzle. Which was your favorite when it was coming up in the show? You're like, oh, I can't wait to get out there and do this one tonight.
I loved Razzle Dazzle because it was such the lyrics were written so perfectly. Just wonderful word pictures in the song. They were so good, not only at melody, but also their lyrics. And I was just, every time I do that, I love it. And I still do it I wrote a one-man musical there that I still tour around the country. And that's the last thing that's the last act or the last number I do in the show.
From being on stage and screen, I mean, it's both acting, but you're stretching different muscles. Do you have a preference?
Oh, I do. I much prefer stage, because I tell you why. There's an authenticity to it. That at 7:30 I show up, and 8 o'clock the curtain goes up. And when that conductor's baton drops, there are no retakes, there are no nothing. You're all the way through. But here's the secret. I know something that the audience doesn't know. I know that at 10:30 at night, they're going to be standing on their feet and screaming and applauding. And so my job is to take them through the journey of getting there. And that's the joy of it, that you've really changed you've just changed their life and made it time well spent. And then the nice part about it is at 10:45, I'm at my favorite restaurant having dinner.
Can't beat that. John O'Hurley joins us this morning. NBC, the National Dog Show, Thanksgiving Day. John, just let the people know, why should they check out the National Dog Show on Thanksgiving Day?
Well, it's a family tradition, and I promise you, at the end of the day, the dogs don't care who won, so it's not like football where everybody gets all upset because the offense wasn't what they were supposed to be or the defense didn't hold up what they were supposed to do. The dogs don't care. They just had a really, really good day. And there's something in it for everybody. And you can sit there and hug the dog that's on the sofa there watching it with you, and they'll say 2 hours well spent.
Well, there you go. It all goes down Thanksgiving Day. John O'Hurley, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Great to talk to you as always.